Good afternoon. You're watching Business World Live. I'm Jess De Los Santos. Let's take a look at how the local bourse closed today, Monday. All right, today marks day one of the reimposition of stricter restrictions in NCR and nearby areas, or as our authorities call it, NCR Plus. That covers Bulacan, Rizal, Laguna, and Cavite. Investors getting bearish with these developments, especially as cases have been going past the 7,000 mark the past 3 days since Friday. The index closed the day down 0.6% to 6,395.17. But beyond today's figures, looking at how shares have been performing the past month alone, from a high of 6,900, the index has fluctuated 7.7% down to where we are now, below 6,400. This as cases started to rise on the second week of March at 3,000 a day. Year to date, though, the slide is even more evident, failing to make a climb after reaching that peak at 7,300. Local shares down 10.43% so far this year. Now, in this morning's broadcast, StockSmart's Marvin Guermo said the bearish undertone is driven primarily by uncertainties here. He says until people see clarity, a more bearish sentiment will continue. That's going to be prolonged, pushing investors to hold on to cash or be on a wait-and-see mode, hence more selling pressure. Jonathan Ravelas of BDO says the index could drop 6,000 in the near term if 6,400 does not hold, and depending really on the pace of virus infections. So far, the resurgence in cases has pushed the index higher here. At least it has pushed the country 7-day moving average of new infections to the highest in the region. If you try to take a look at this chart right here provided by Bloomberg, you'd see here infections here has surpassed that of Indonesia's, the first time since September last year. Indonesia still has the most cases, but as seen in the blue line here, infections in our neighbor has seen a steady decline. While for the Philippines, as represented by the white line, that has seen an increase since the start of the month. Like I mentioned earlier, we did see cases reaching 3,000 per day as early as March 11th. That's why now a movement is being limited in the region, and that has pushed Metro Manila restaurants lower in today's trade. Not a good day here for Max's. The house that fried chicken built fell the most among diners here, retreated by as much as 3.7% earlier in the day, but tempered those losses, ending Monday lower by 1.5% to 5 pesos and 80 centavos a share. Restaurants will no longer be allowed indoor dining. Food services will also be limited to delivery and takeout, and outdoor dining or al fresco with a 50% maximum capacity. Looking at how the other restaurant operators did perform today, you have Shakey's that's down close to 1.5% as well to 6 pesos and 80 a share. Jollibee likewise, a bit of a flat movement here, though still on the downside, now at 175.90. Alliance Global, which operates, of course, McDonald's in the Philippines, is also down over 0.1% to 10 pesos and 28 centavos a share. But as these restaurants close lower, grocers are on the uptrend today. Particularly, look at that, Pure Gold is up 4.6% today. They are now priced at 38 pesos and 70 centavos a share, while Robinson's Retail is also up over 1.5%, now at 53 pesos a piece. This on hopes that, the dining ban will actually help boost the sales of grocers and supermarkets. So really a diverging movement here for our restaurant operators and supermarket operators. This, of course, as new restrictions are put in place starting today until April 4th. Here are other headlines we're keeping our eyes on. Malacanang clarifies that all companies, including cigarette manufacturers, can enter into tripartite deals with the government to procure COVID-19 vaccines. Napala spokesman Harry Roque made the clarification after reports that some firms have been barred from procuring COVID-19 vaccines due to the nature of their business. Senator Amy Marcos had raised concerns about a draft administrative order from the DOH prohibiting some companies from purchasing vaccines. This supposedly includes firms in the tobacco industry. The Philippine Chamber of Commerce and Industry previously sought the government's nod in allowing the private sector to directly procure vaccines from manufacturers in a bid to fast-track inoculation efforts. Meanwhile, Malacanang says gyms in these NCR Plus areas may operate up to 75% capacity, while spas may operate at a capacity of up to 50%, subject to LGU adjustments. Now, Philippine exporters are seeking more financial aid from the government as the sector struggles to recover from the downturn caused by the pandemic. The Philippine Exporters Confederation said economic recovery in the third and fourth quarters is hinged on the projected rebound in exports. The Philippine Star reports that the group is now pushing for financial institutions to extend additional aid to borrowers. PhilExport says there is a need to upgrade workers' skills and adapt to technologies and digitalization. As the government restricts movement once again in NCR and nearby provinces for the next 2 weeks, how might this impact an economy that has yet to recover from the blows of 2020? Now, to share his thoughts, we have Union Bank's chief economist, Carlo Asuncion. Good afternoon, Sir Carlo.
Thanks for having me.
All right, so no matter how you call it, a bubble, a GCQ, or a lockdown, or whatnot, it's all the same. How is the private sector taking these developments, another 2 weeks of a cut in activity?
Well, definitely this is something that's concerning, and we know that in terms of basic demand, we don't see any changes because even what you've reported today, you see some upticks in certain stocks that are retail in nature. So investors are pricing in that particular adjustments right now. But what we're concerned about is definitely real investment in the longer term. So in terms of what are the other plans of different industries? Of course, we've heard of certain industries asking for help. So I think this particular, even though it's just 2 weeks, and hopefully it does work, it does set us back with our planned or at least the expected recovery that we are looking at.
By how much do you see this at least setting us back when it comes to like what you mentioned, recovery efforts?
Yeah. Well, initially we were expecting at least a 0.5% for the first quarter, and so now it seems like it's going to be probably a little bit on the negative area again. So and at least a 5.7 to 5.8 supposedly for 2021, but now it's going to be near about probably 5% because you have to adjust now even second quarter because we're almost at the second quarter. This particular bubble, circuit breaker, lockdown breaches the second quarter already. So it definitely has impact. It may impact both quarters in 2021.
Okay, so you expect this to carry on at least in the second quarter, but if I may just clarify, you're expecting negative growth still, given this 2 week lockdown, negative growth at least in the first quarter.
Yeah, well, initially we were expecting a positive one, at least a little bit higher than, well, at least just the crossing the line of a positive growth. But now with this one, it's unlikely that we will. So.
Okay, earlier also, Carlo, you were mentioning about how this might in fact affect real investments here, not so much about the restaurants and the malls, considering that there's a bit of a leeway there. Do you have any sectors in mind?
Well, definitely. Again, your accommodation, transportation. So these industries, again, we know that from the very beginning they've been really hard hit, and this one is another one. So because we know that it has been relatively relatively open, no, recently. So again, if you wouldn't allow people to go out as directed by the government, of course, because with much reason, uh, definitely it will take them a whole back, no.
Mhm.
And
And while we're on the topic of investments here, FDI inflow has slumped its lowest in 5 years in 2020. That has yet to recover. How is a stricter curve going to affect sentiment?
yeah, definitely, we know that even today, just at least in the stock market, we know that this has been number one. Just the negative sentiment about this and the uncertainties of whether or not we'll be able to control this outbreak again, or this upsurge, no, and hopefully we will be able to do that with restrictions and return to what needs to be done after this 2 week lockdown.
Hmm. Now, also, much has been said. A lot of criticisms that that this recent move of the government spares them from unleashing another round of stimulus package for Ayuda. How high should this be now on the government's agenda, given the current scenario?
Well, the Bayanihan 3, I think, or even what was been talking about, was about a billion 60 plus.
Mhm.
And I understand that there are certain sectors that are asking, I think, 400 billion plus. So to actually survive. So, I mean, that's even just the Bayanihan 3 is really a small effort compared to the 400 plus billion that's being asked for by certain sectors in the economy. So I think with this one, definitely it sets us back again, even though it's just 2 weeks. But definitely, if a certain sector is asking that much, definitely we have to, at least government has to consider reprogramming again, uh, what they're looking at to spend, at least what are the priorities this year. So just to address these very much needed what do you call it, requests from certain industries.
Mm. Okay, and do I take it to mean as well, Carlo, that at least a Bayanihan 3 would be the bare minimum in this case?
Yeah.
And
Yep.
that, go ahead.
Yeah, I agree. That's basically the bare minimum, and hopefully we could do more. No, and I think this is the a perfect time to do it because we know that where the virus has its own timeline. We can have our own timeline, but the virus has its own timeline. So I think that that's the case, and then we have to work with it.
And would you subscribe as well to the proposal of some lawmakers, that bulk of Bayanihan 3 should really be allocated as well for MSMEs?
Well, yeah, definitely, because it's just really a huge part of employment. And if you're looking at employment, we know that employment is just uh, a lot of right now. Yeah, I mean it's been recovering, but we noticed there's just been a lot of part-time people, part-time work in agriculture, part-time work in certain industries. So and even just salaries being cut. So I think that it's very timely that we should really focus on just the helping employment at this point.
Okay, one other thing, of course, a number of economists and authorities, of course, are banking on for growth vaccine rollout. But given the current pace of the rollout and even the delivery of the shots or the procurement, do these spark confidence?
Yeah, I've been reading about the Bloomberg tracker, and I think we are third among ASEAN countries as top three in terms of inoculation daily. That's about I think 25,500 on average, and they say that it would take 10 years to actually reach 75% or what you call your herd immunity. And so 25,500 won't cut it. So I think that we just have to really up our game in terms of rolling out the vaccines and making sure that everybody gets it as soon as possible.
Okay, and lastly now, Carlo, before we let you go, if you can just reiterate once again your outlook for the year and perhaps what would it take in order for us to really post a positive growth for the entirety of 2021?
Well, definitely, our assumptions are hinged on an effective, efficient, a quick rollout as even what the government has planned, or at least reaching about 70 million of the population. So that's about 63, 64%, not even the 75%, talking about in terms of herd immunity requirements. And so if we would be able to do that, at least the minimum that they're looking at, 70 million, at least this year, then we will be looking at a very robust, probably a 5.7 or even a 5 point, sorry, 6%,
Mhm.
if that would be possible. If
If
we could,
not,
yeah. If not, then probably now, right now, we were thinking of scaling back to about 5%, and we'll see. But right now, that's where we are at.
just like a lot of investors, you also know wait and see mode as an economist as to how our growth will fare for the rest of the year. Thank you so much for your time. Carlos Asuncion, Chief Economist of Union Bank.
Welcome.
And those are the biggest news this trading day, March 22nd, 2021. Catch Business World live again tomorrow at 9:30 a.m. for the market open and 3:15 p.m. for the market close. I'm Jess De Los Santos. We are One News. Mask on, wash hands, and stay safe, Philippines.